Welcome into Outkick the Show. I am your fearless leader, Clay Travis. I hope all of you are having a fantastic Tuesday, wherever you may be. Next couple of weeks, every Tuesday, right after the college football playoff rankings come out, I will be here hanging out with you guys and telling you exactly what I think. A little bit later show than normal on tap here. But the College Football Playoff Selection Committee has released their rankings. If you are a college football fan, as I am, let me go ahead and give you the top 10. Not a lot of surprise. LSU 1, Ohio State 2, Clemson 3, Georgia maintains the 4 spot. Alabama is 5, stays there even with the Tua injury. Oregon 6, Utah 7, Penn State 8, in the 9 spot, Oklahoma. Minnesota is at 10. The Florida Gators are 11, and Auburn only falls to 15. Notre Dame is 16. That means that Georgia has 3 top 16 wins, all right? A lot to unpack here, but I always like to immediately react by saying, okay, let's look at the larger universe of college football. What is going on here in the larger context, all right? So, number 1 overall, the big takeaway is Georgia is in the playoff and LSU is in the playoff if Georgia upsets LSU in the SEC title game. Let me repeat that because it's significant. If you are a fan and you want to know what the flow chart looks like, if Georgia beats A&M and if they beat Georgia Tech, and they roll into Atlanta at 11-1 for what will be a default home game against LSU, I think the Bulldogs have at worst a 50-50 chance to beat LSU, particularly the way that LSU defense is playing. I think it'll be a low-scoring, ugly game, and I think there's a decent chance that Georgia wins that game. If Georgia goes 12-1, then LSU is going to be in the playoff at 12-1. And Georgia is going to be in the playoff at 12-1. So that is the most likely scenario alongside of Clemson and Ohio State in, okay? Most likely. Second most likely scenario, I would say, is Georgia loses to LSU, and then a spot opens up at number 4, and we have to decide between 11-1 Alabama, 12-1 Pac-12 champ, and 12-1 Big 12 champ. In that scenario, I think the committee will give incredible weight to how Mac Jones looks on the road against Auburn. We'll have a Cardell Jones-like situation, okay? And in that Cardell Jones-like situation, if you remember back in 2014, Ohio State came out and won 59-0 over Wisconsin to propel themselves into the college football playoff. Alabama needs a dominant win over Auburn to put themselves into the mix and to maintain their status right there as the team of choice. If you are an Oregon fan, what you need and or hope happens is that Georgia loses and Alabama loses. Then I believe you are 100% in. I think the same thing would be true of Utah, okay? I don't think the Big 12 has a very good chance here. What the committee is telling us by keeping Oklahoma at 9 is they don't really value the overall strength of the Big 12, even with a win in Bedlam and even with another win over Baylor, which is the best case scenario for Oklahoma. I don't think the Sooners have a chance of actually making the college football playoff. The only real chaotic scenario I can imagine is if Ohio State gets upset by Penn State, then everything can fall apart, okay? If Ohio State loses to Penn State, they don't then advance to the to the Big Ten title game, then everything starts to be a jumble. But I think the most likely challenge here for the committee is if Alabama whips Auburn, how in the world would you put Oregon, even with Tua out? How would you put Oregon in over Alabama when Alabama would be whipping the Auburn team that Oregon could not beat? And for people out there who say, well, Oregon had a lot of injuries, hello, Alabama would be beating Auburn with their backup quarterback and their non-first-round quarterback in Tua out there. But that's only if Georgia gets in that situation at all. People, Alabama hasn't beaten anyone. Do you know who Oregon has beaten? No one. Do you know who Utah has beaten? No one. Do you know who Clemson has beaten? No one. Those three teams combined have, I believe, one top 25 win in USC. That's it. That's it, all right? Clemson, Oregon, and Utah, I believe I am correct in this, have one combined top 25 right now, and it's over number 24 USC. And oh, by the way, Utah actually lost to that team. All right? This is the way that you break it down. I am the greatest college football playoff analyst ever, and that is the scenario here. Somebody saying Texas A&M is back in the top 25. They are not. They are not in the college football top 25. They are in the AP top 25. I only care about the college football top 25. I don't know how, for instance, USC is getting into the top 25. I don't know how Iowa State is getting into the top 25 over A&M, but that is the truth of the current top 25 scenarios in the college football playoff. All right, I will now pause and allow anybody who wants to ask me a hypothetical to do so, okay? Anybody who wants to ask me a hypothetical may do so. Best resume, by the way, right now goes to Georgia, who has a win over number 16 Notre Dame, who has a win over number 15 Auburn, and has a win over number 11 Florida. Georgia is the only team in college football right now with 3 top 16 resumes, okay? LSU is not going to lose to Arkansas. LSU has Arkansas and Texas A&M left on the board here. So a lot of different questions out there, a lot of different universe questions out there, but I just ran through all of the situations in general, okay? Georgia, the easiest story to follow. If Georgia beats A&M and if Georgia beats Georgia Tech, then they are in the college football playoff with a win over LSU. LSU is in regardless of what happens in the SEC title game with a win over Arkansas and with a win over Texas A&M. Good question. What if Ohio State wins the Big Ten but loses to Michigan? Doesn't matter. Ohio State is going to have a mulligan game against Michigan. If Ohio State beats Penn State this weekend, then next week's game against Michigan won't matter at all. Even if Ohio State lost to Michigan, they would still be in great shape to make the college football playoffs so long as they beat either Minnesota or Wisconsin. The Big Ten West is going to come down to the final week of the season, whatever happens in that Wisconsin-Minnesota situation. So there aren't a lot of challenging scenarios out here right now. I know everybody likes to throw out wild hypothetical scenarios. To me, the biggest challenge could be if Minnesota won the Big Ten, and I think they would knock Ohio State out, and Georgia won the SEC. I don't think they would knock LSU out because number 5 would come down to LSU versus Ohio State, and I think LSU would get in. If South Carolina beats Clemson, or if whoever wins the ACC other side beats Clemson, Clemson's not going to be in. So that is the landscape there. I think I just broke down everything that could be a different permutation of the situation right now. If Penn State wins the Big Ten, they're in the playoff. I mean, that's not complicated. If Penn State beats Ohio State, and then they beat Rutgers, which I think it's fair to say they're going to do, and then they beat either Minnesota or Wisconsin, they would be in the college football playoff. Not complicated. Pretty easy to actually break all that down. There's not going to be a 2-loss SEC champ, but if there were a 2-loss SEC champ, I think they would get in. I really do. But it's going to be almost impossible for there to be a 2-loss SEC champ because I don't think Georgia's going to lose, and I certainly don't think Georgia's going to lose and then bounce back and beat LSU, and I don't think LSU's going to lose to either Arkansas, God forbid, or or in any way do I think they're going to lose to Texas A&M. I think the Final Four is going to be LSU, in no particular order, Ohio State, Clemson, and Georgia. I think Georgia is going to upset LSU in the SEC title game and roll in. Okay, top 5, bottom 5. Top 5, yeah, Baylor's done. Baylor is not going to make the college football playoff unless true chaos happens. Neither is Oklahoma. I know Sooner fans are all fired up. You guys are not going to make the college football playoff at all. Okay, top 5, bottom 5. 49ers, best team in the NFL. Patriots, second best team in the NFL. Ravens, third best team in the NFL. And the Seahawks are 4, and the Saints are 5. At 6, I have Packers, and at 7, I have the Vikings. All right, that's my top 7. I went ahead and gave you 7 teams this week. Bottom 5, the Bucs, the Dolphins, the Giants, the Redskins, and the Bengals are the bottom 5 right now. Antonio Brown has apologized to the Patriots, trying to get back into the NFL season before it's all said and done. I'm not going to lie to you. A part of me would love to see the Patriots actually decide to re-sign Antonio Brown just for Bill Belichick and co. to stick up their middle finger and be able to force all the American public to hate them even more. I would actually love that. Their offense is a mess. I think, honestly, that the Patriots could use Antonio Brown. A part of me thinks it might be a little bit crazy, but why not bring him back for the tail end of the season and for the playoffs? I think it would be incredible to see. Finally, I got some stats for you. One of the things I like to do is let you know that the world isn't going to be and isn't as bad as you would actually believe it to be, all right? There's a huge number of people out there that are incentivized to make you believe that things are a lot worse than they are, okay? Here are some fun with numbers. The impeachment scenario right now that's playing out that isn't a very big story in the grand scheme of things. Last week, the biggest day of impeachment had 13 million viewers, all right? Biggest day of impeachment. That was on CBS, ABC, NBC, Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, Headline News, C-SPAN, all of those channels combined. Like 10 different stations showed it live. The best day for viewership, 13 million viewers. Sunday night football last week between the Vikings and the Cowboys had 23 million viewers. So way more people, 10 million more people watched a random regular season football game than watched impeachment on 10 channels combined. Couple of more stats for you. Monday Night Football last night, 13 million viewers for the Chiefs going up against the Chargers. That's more viewers than any day of impeachment this week and more viewers than every news channel combined. Another fun stat for you. Over 40 million people watched every Game of Thrones episode when DVR was factored in. Nearly 4 times as many people watched every Game of Thrones episode last year as have watched any of the impeachment so far. And why is that? It's because impeachment's a foregone conclusion. If you are a hardcore political person, eat your heart out, watch this thing like crazy. But the reality is this. The Democratic-controlled House is going to impeach Donald Trump, and then the Republican-controlled Senate is not going to remove him from office, and this story is going to be over, and everybody's going to go vote for whoever they're going to vote for in 2020. That's the way it's going to end, and it's going to have no impact at all on the election. The bigger story to follow, if you want to follow an election story, is this. Why in the world? I mean, think about this. Why in the world are people out there jumping into this Democratic race if they feel good about beating Donald Trump? Mayor Bloomberg, also Deval Patrick. Democrats are terrified that they haven't nominated anybody who can beat Donald Trump yet and don't have anybody who can win the nomination that can beat him. That's the bigger story to me than impeachment. Final story. The NBA... and this is not getting anywhere near the media attention that it should. When the NFL ratings dropped in the wake of the Colin Kaepernick mess, They went down 19%, and the world lost its mind. Front page news, major topic of discussion, the NFL and its brand under siege. In the last 2 years, the NBA has dropped in ratings by 27%. All right, this is a stat that you're not going to hear very many other places. In the last 2 years, the NBA has lost 27% of its viewership. The NBA has the China issue. We're going to change the word owner. They have been intensely political with their players and their coaches. And they've got all the load management issues going on. Why is the media not covering the NBA's ratings collapse on Turner, TNT, and ESPN like they covered the collapse in the NFL when the NBA's ratings collapse is infinitely worse than what happened with the NFL? The NFL got smart, and they took politics out of their game over the past 2 years, and the ratings went back up. The NBA has bear-hugged politics, and as a result, they're getting woke and going broke. It never fails. You want to appeal to everyone if you are in the universe of sports. The NBA's intense politicization of both China embrace and anti-Trump and all of this different shenanigans associated with load management as well, and LeBron going west to LA, it has killed the NBA brand over the past couple of years. Ask yourself why all the cheerleaders in the media are not covering it. All the same people who loved covering the NFL's problems are not covering the NBA because it doesn't fit their narrative. Got to be honest with you guys. I'm the most honest person in the world of sports media. All I do every single day is spit the truth. I love all of you. Kisses, DBAP, unless you need to SBAP. I got to go coach Little League basketball. Hope you enjoyed the discussion of the college football playoffs, NFL top 5, bottom 5, why the NBA is tanking, impeachment, and also AB trying to make a play to get back on the Patriots. Love you guys. See y'all. I'm out. Love you. Thank you, Facebook. I'm out.